your argument then, Mr. Khan, your argument is that we should not ban marijuana because of cocaine. You should not ban cigarettes because of marijuana. You should not ban, but that's a weak argument. I'm sorry. If you can, just because something else is available, you're saying I should also be allowed to sell something that is harmful to our children.
You might disagree.
Let's make it very clear on national television tonight that e-cigarettes are bad for you.
I'm not saying
they're bad for you. They're poison.
Please allow me to make my point. I'm not saying that it is. Let me put forth my points, ma'am. Please.
Let me ask you a yes or no question.
Are something which are to be recommended. No. Yes and no. Just give me 30 seconds. What I am saying that if as a smoker I have two choices, one to go for a conventional smoking and one to go for a non-smoking, why this choice should be curbed to me as a smoker? Smoking in this country is not crime as of yet, except of some public places as per the regulations. So why I should be deprived of a choice which is less harmful to me? That's my question, simple.
All right.
And if you want to protect health, then ban everything, ban cigarettes also. What is your interest in, it does not sound that there is a pressure of tobacco lobby in getting ban on this e-cigarettes.
Okay, all right. So that's Farooq Khan, who is an advocate and he's associated with the Association of Vapers in India, and Cyril Alexander, who joined us right now. Well, Twitter, hold your breath. I agree with the government of India here. Cigarettes and smoking is terrible. It's a terrible, terrible habit that costs us about 9 lakh lives in our country every year. We lose 9 lakh people to tobacco every year. Should we find a way to get people off tobacco? Yes. Does that have anything to do with this ban? No. It has been proven quite clearly that vaping and e-cigarettes are bad for you. This is not like nariyal pani, which is good and can be recommended. It is bad for you for whatever reason you may take to it. So before it becomes, and we understand from papers and research across the world that this is highly addictive. So before it becomes another problem of the size of normal cigarettes or tobacco, the government has made this decision at exactly the right time. Before our country full of young people become dependent on something that Hollywood stars are now being photographed using on Instagram. If it's not good for us, we don't need it. Let's weed it out right now before it becomes a large problem. I compliment the government of India for taking this decision at this time. Moving on, we continue our focus on the ongoing economic crisis. Today, news came out that General Motors in India has become the third auto company to offer voluntary retirement to its employees in an attempt to cut costs. With the slowdown across the industry intensifying, General Motors India is now on a cost-cutting spree. After transferring 1,300 employees from the technical center to TCS in a deal on Monday, the company has now offered voluntary retirement to its employees in the Talegaon plant. Both Hero MotoCorp and Ashok Leyland have also offered their employees over the age of 40 voluntary retirement in a bid to bring those costs down. And it's not just the auto sector that's under stress. Mirror Now correspondent Amita Balchandra went on ground to Mumbai's leather goods hub in Dharavi. The leather goods dealers have been there for many, many years. They tell us now that business is down 50 to 60%, and the losses in business is forcing these small-scale businessmen to cut their contract laborers and fire people. They're also staring at the prospect of shutting their shops.
मार्केट में ऑर्डर नहीं है, मतलब उतने कस्टमर अभी नहीं दिख रहे हैं, इसकी वजह से स्लो डाउन है। तो सब अभी ज़्यादातर तो यहाँ से सब अभी मूव ऑन हो गए।
तो पूरे स्टोर को आप रेंट कितना भरते हो हर महीने? और अभी आप बोल रहे थे कि आप 4 महीने से रेंट भी भर नहीं पा रहे हो।
एक महीने का रेंट ये 60,000 है, प्लस 10,000 का लाइट बिल आता है। तो टोटल समझ लीजिए 70,000 खाली रेंट है। अभी मैं ये 4 महीने से तो बहुत हम लोग परेशान हैं। तो हम लोग मतलब रूम मालिकिन को ऐसे ही बोलते हैं कि नेक्स्ट मंथ में ये मिला करके पे करेंगे, लेकिन अभी तक का तो नहीं दे पाए हैं। 4 महीने से ऐसे करके रखे हम लोग।
फर्क तो है पहले से बहुत। खैर पहले काम हमेशा मिलता रहता था, काम नहीं मिल रहा है, काम बहुत कम हो गया है। ऑर्डर भी कम आ रहे हैं।
ऑर्डर्स कम आ रहे हैं, अभी 2-3 महीने से कम आ रहे थे।
इसमें बहुत फ़र्क है। पहले काम अच्छा मिलता था, अभी काम नहीं है, मार्केट में काम कम है, कमाई कम हो गई है, खर्चा बढ़ गया है, यही है, परेशानी तो है ही।
पर तो पहले और अभी के लोग भी फर्क है, मतलब पहले बहुत है अभी कम है।
नहीं, एक्चुअली क्या हम लोग का ऑर्डर है, अगर ऑर्डर नहीं है तो फिर कुछ नहीं है, हम लोग काम होना चाहिए, काम भरपूर होगा तो काम अच्छा होगा, और अभी काम कम है।
अभी काम भी बहुत कम है पहले से ज़्यादा रहते। अभी सीजन का टाइम हो गया है, अभी तक काम ऐसा नहीं आया नहीं मार्केट में, बहुत परेशान है हम लोग। और कैसा है,
जो पहले मिलता था सैलरी उतना मिल रहा है या कम हो चुका है?
नहीं, बिल्कुल नहीं। पहले तो अच्छी सैलरी होती थी, अभी तो समझ लीजिए आप आधा से भी आधा हो गई है सैलरी। काम भी नहीं है, कुछ भी काम भी नहीं हो पाया तो सैलरी नहीं मिल पा रही है।
In fact, Amita joins us live right now. Amita, good evening. How many of these traders and workers did you speak to, and did they tell you how they're running their houses now and how they're managing to keep up, just basically put food on the table?
Well, we managed to speak to at least 10 of them, wholesalers, retailers. We even visited manufacturing units where we spoke to contract laborers, most of them migrant laborers, and all of them had just one thing to say, that businesses are down by 50 to 60%, that they live in fear. Contract laborers told us that they live in fear because they're seeing that in every industry, in every small scale industry, especially in the leather market, in the peak season, considering this is the peak season, a lot of them are being laid off, and they are afraid that they could be in line next. Now, when we spoke to wholesalers and retailers, they told us that they're not getting enough orders, and that is a major reason that there is this downsizing, and they've had to downsize 50% at least. And the ones who are at the worst end at this point, Faye, are people who are living on rent, who have to pay rent every month upwards 25,000 rupees, and they say that before they would have about 8 to 10 workers, considering their small scale companies, and now they've had to downsize and have just about 1 or 2 employees at the max, and perhaps that could even get worse. That is the biggest worry, because this is the season when exports are at the peak every year, they say, and this time around it's particularly bad. The problem started off in January, they say. In the last 2 to 3 months, the problem has gotten worse, and the ones who are having to pay rent are not even able to pay rent, say that they may have to shut shop soon.
All right, Amita, thank you for that update. Let me quickly go across to my guests at this point. Mohan Guruswamy is a senior economist. We also have Abhishek Mishra of the BJP, Ajay Dua, former Commerce Secretary, join us right now, and Mr. Aman Agarwal, who's the director of the Indian Institute of Finance. Quick round of opinions from each of you. Mr. Guruswamy, obviously the auto industry is feeling perhaps the worst kind of pain, but our concern is also with smaller pockets of workshops and laborers, people like the leather industry in Mumbai and perhaps many others across the country. Do you see the poorest right now facing a very grim festive season?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I've been saying this for 2 years. This country, with demonetization, inflicted a mortal blow on the poor people's economy and their lifestyle and on their work and everything. And we are seeing the worst time now, and that has hit them the most. So, the thing for this government to do is to accept that there is something really wrong and work on it. Instead of, the finance minister made some ridiculous announcements of some 20,000 crores worth of pump priming in an economy which is about 180 lakh crores now. And, these people have no idea about what is to be done. You have to do something big and major and begin to get this economy off the ground. Poor people are suffering. I've been reading reports in various journals and, documents which say that, people are down to 1 meal a day in many parts of the country. There's no work. And, even the Narega wages are about half the minimum wages stipulated by the government. So it doesn't help. People are in distress. I think this government will wake up to that.
Mr. Dua, I want to ask you this, obviously, and this is something I take responsibility for. As the media, we don't venture out of our comfortable cities enough to find out what the rural economy is like at this point. But do you expect a spike in fuel prices, petrol and diesel will put even more pressure on our poorest and might accelerate what the pain that we're already seeing, or we're already witnessing in these markets?
I don't think, Faye, we can deny that. If the position of fuel availability, be it because of what we are seeing in Saudi Arabia or higher production cut by OPEC countries, does go into effect, certainly there would be impact on India. We have, though we are talking about alternate sources of fuel, Russia may be one of them, but all that's going to kick in after a while. The immediate impact would certainly be increase in transportation costs, and our rural areas are not immune, would not be immune, because they also bear the cost of carrying cargo in their goods which they buy, as well as in the automobiles, which particularly the two-wheelers, which they have in
Yes.
large numbers. So it would be affecting them. Let's only hope that the Kharif crop, which will now start coming late October, early November, that's good. Rains have been somewhat late in the beginning, but then the monsoon thereafter was fairly okay, and there are estimates that we may not see any production cut compared to last year in terms of Kharif, which is our major crop. And I do hope that going forward, the Rabi crop is also good, and that could probably allay some of the distress which we have seen persisted for almost a year or a year and a half in the agriculture sector, and which is vulnerable to any kind of spikes in fuel prices.
Aman Agarwal is with us. Mr. Agarwal, here's the question. A lot of the measures that the government has announced, and they have been announcing measures on a regular basis, have been targeted at formal industry or formal businesses. The people that Amita spoke with today are informal. They run small shops, small workshops where they're doing leather work like stitching zips onto handbags. Those are the people who tell us they've not been able to pay their rent, they've not been able to pay school fees, they're making half as much as they used to per month. Is there at all a way to help these people out? Do you think any of the measures announced by the government will be able to help those in the unorganized sector?
No, Faye, you're right about the fact that the announcements which have come out through Madam Nirmala Sitharaman so far have actually been administrative reform measures, largely than any kind of a package which has been rolled out so far. Although there have been some corrections made, some kind of facilitation, and most of it has been on a formal ground outlay. But please understand that these are some things which have been needed in the country for a long time. There has been a way of taking money from banks, creating NPAs and letting those things move forward. There has been a way of letting the cash economy rule the country for almost 60, 70 years, where the parallel economy is much stronger than the normal economy for a long time. So if those steps have been taken there, these are some hardships which we are going to see in the journey. But please understand, why are they trying to merge these banks? Why are they trying to let the RBI have the liquidity easy taking place for something which was stuck up for almost a year and a half till the new governor took over, Shaktikant Das took over. Now, please understand, these are important steps which are in the making. It is not that the government is not going to do. There are a large number of projects which they have laid out, and I hope they roll them up. And if they roll them up, there will be these jobs which will get created for the tertiary sector, which is the unorganized sector, to a great deal. But to think that it can be done overnight, it will not happen. And I am hopeful after the GST Council meeting, the Nirmala Sitharaman intends to hold another. We are hopeful that something may come forward there on to make these corrections. But just to say that it will be done something like the way cash liquidity was released by the previous government, not before 2014, by creating Manrega and distributing liquidity into the hands of people and not creating much work which was taking place. And we have had reports which clearly outlay that. Now, if that is what we are looking at in terms of fiscal spending, I'm sorry, this government so far has shown a way that they're not going to do. But if we are looking at fiscal spending, and this government has a space, we have a fiscal space of almost about 100 basis points. That means we can actually edge up to about 4.5% of fiscal deficit. We have requisite reserves to take care of that. It's only a question of the government to take a will to invest in areas which will be productive in nature tomorrow, where we are going to create jobs which will ultimately lead to investment and growth in the country, but not distribute largesse.
Right. We also have Abhishek Mishra from the BJP join us right now. Abhishek Mishra, I'll save us time. You will say, of course, that the government is seized of the matter and they're doing everything in their power right now to make changes. Are there any specific moves you can talk about right now to do with the unorganized sector and those people in that unorganized sector who are currently suffering?
Kindly give me time as you have given all of the panelists. First of all, with regards to the General Motor issue, General Motor India released a statement that because of lower demand in the Mexican market, that they have not been able to achieve sales targets. So now there are some global factors in Mexico due to which General Motors cannot, supply vehicles, cannot manufacture in the right manner. For that, kindly do not hold, our government responsible for the Mexican market. Secondly, Mohan Guruswamy is an eternal pessimist and anti-BJP person. I don't want to reply much to him. Now coming to Mr. Dua, I totally agree with him that the farming sector is going to improve, the crops will be good, and once the crops are good, once in the rural market there will be money
How can
in
you
the hand
agree
of
with
the farmer,
Mr. Dua and not
the
Mr.
demand
Guruswamy?
will
They
rise
said the same thing. They agreed with each other.
No, let me reply. Don't see, you only interrupt me. Don't interrupt. This is a serious issue. I want to get a point across to the citizens of India, please. So Mr. Dua said that the crops will be good. Once the crops are good, there's money in the rural economy. Once again, demand will be created. And all our household products, they will be
Crops are good because of good rain, so Bhagwan
we see the rural demand once again, and that will cause the economy to remove. As Mr. Agarwal said, I also agree with Mr. Agarwal that lot of the problems were created in 60-70 years, and all the parallel black money, cash economy, the Congress cash economy, and hence the BJP had to take this tough measures. And as Mr. Agarwal said,
what is the point if nobody is going to survive this tough measure, Mr. Mishra?
Time period.
You will kill us all.
No. Let me reply.
There's no business that will survive.
No. You support Mohan Guruswamy. That's your problem, Vedu. It is the people of India I have to address through you. I have to give my point across.
I support the people of India who are losing jobs at this point, who are getting laid off from their offices at this point, who don't have money to pay their bills, Abhishek Mishra. Mr. Guruswamy has nothing to do with it.
You don't let me reply, Faye. You want to hide the truth, Faye. Let me reply. Who has done the lakhs of crores of the non-performing assets? Who did a 2G scam, coal scam? Who has taken the public money into the hands of the corrupt businessmen?
Not a single person has gone to jail.
We are taking steps to ensure.
Who's gone to jail for coal scam?
No, let me reply.
Who's gone to jail for 2G scam? Who have you prosecuted?
No. P. Chidambaram is in jail today.
For the 2G scam?
And Modi
what is he in jail for?
Every man who has done corruption.
What is he in jail for? He is in jail on the INX media case and he has not been convicted. Please, Abhishek Mishra,
yes.
This is not that channel. Go check which channel you're sitting on. This is not that channel. This is not that channel. Shouting nonsense will not help you. Let me clarify this for our audience.
I'm speaking the truth. I'm speaking the truth.
Take a deep breath.
I'm speaking the truth.
Take a deep
breath. We are going towards a $5 trillion economy. Once we have
if you're going alone, I wish you good luck. But unless you take all the rest of us with you, you're not going to be able to do it. Now, just to remind our audience before we run out of time, Mr. Mohan Guruswamy was the advisor to the Finance Minister, Mr. Yashwant Sinha. They were part of a BJP government. Mr. Dua and Mr. Guruswamy effectively agreed with each other. But here we have Mr. Mishra agreeing with Mr. Dua, not with Mr. Guruswamy. I don't really know how that adds up. If he's saying that it's just...
the crops will improve and the farmers will have money back.
Only if
Mr.
it rains.
Dua said the crops will improve.
Don't
the
take credit for the rain.
Is going to improve.
Don't take
That's
credit
what we are saying.
Are you quite done?
May I come in?
Farmers, we have given them so many subsidies.
Mr. Dua, go ahead.
I think, Faye, in addition to depending upon the monsoon for everything, the government could perhaps take a couple of steps, and I don't think the physical deficit should come really in the way. One is there are two installments of the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Yojana which are which have yet to be dispersed. That is, out of the 12,000 rupees, 6,000 have been disbursed. I would think to alleviate to some extent temporarily the liquidity issue with the farmers till the crop comes in, the government could consider releasing the third and the fourth installments together, and they could do it right away rather than wait for the month of October and then January. And I think the financial situation is not so grim as not to permit that. That's one. Secondly, I would say, please go ahead and make sure that Manrega scheme is well financed, well funded, because with all its faults, whichever people keep talking about, it is a way to pump liquidity into the economy, so-called, call it pump priming, digging holes, filling them up. It's not so bad. Some states have created assets, and I'm sure about the state where I used to work in Maharashtra under the Rozgar Hami Yojana, or the Employment Guarantee Scheme, we were able to a large extent handle our drought relief programs or take drought relief measures through funding from the EGS. And Manrega is modeled on that. These two things can perhaps be done immediately because the government is as concerned as everybody else about that the aggregate demand in the agriculture sector, rural sector, has to be built up if we have to revive, be it the demand for FMCG products, be it the demand for two-wheelers and the like.
Yes, I also want to point out again as a rebuttal to Mr. Mishra, who said that it is because General Motors sales in Mexico is suffering that they've decided to actually give voluntary retirement to a lot of their employees. Then what is the excuse for Ashok Leyland or Hero Motors or any of the other auto companies that have complained of bad business and have actually rolled back production over the last couple of months? We can deny this as much as we can, but the problem is that we're now in a crisis and we have to set aside all of the politics and we have to actually just start working. A lot more needs to be done far more quickly, because it is the people in the smaller workshops who do work on daily wage who will be the worst hit. And that is really the bottom of the pyramid, the platform on which our entire economy is standing. So when people who work in leather workshops, in foundries, in small businesses on the outskirts of all of our cities, and people in our villages who work in farms, if they start losing their jobs, the entire edifice of our economy will collapse. Of course, in about half an hour or so, we will talk about what's going to happen with our fuel prices given what's happening across the world and how much of a buffer we have. There are some views that believe that if the fuel prices go up globally, our economy will be in even deeper trouble, and we'll take a closer look at that in about half an hour. But in the meantime, I have another conversation to bring to you.